Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Please join me and my guest in this next interview. Now, thousands of protesters flooded the streets of France in response to President Emmanuel Macron's appointment of center-right Michel Barnier as Prime Minister. Left-wing parties accuse Macron of disregarding recent election results, as Barnier faces the challenge of governing without a clear majority. With political tensions high and a potential non-confidence vote looming, Barnier must navigate a deeply divided parliament. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss this volatile situation is Romain Le Quiniou, Managing Director of Eurocreative. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for having me.
Can you first help us understand why has Macron's appointment of Barnier sparked such widespread protests?
Yes, basically we have to come back to the reality of these elections, of these early anticipated elections that were held before the summertime. The parliament is hung, the election were not conclusive, and now we still have three blocs which are unwilling to ally, and this is why we had so many difficult negotiations, that it was so difficult and so long to find a prime minister for France. Now, why he nominated Monsieur Barnier, there are several reasons. I think that first, he tried to find consensual personality either from the center-left or from the center-right. He tried two names, two well-known names. One was Monsieur Cazeneuve from the center-left. The other one was Monsieur Bertrand from the center-right, and both of them were rejected. Monsieur Cazeneuve from the center-left was rejected directly by most of the political forces from the left. It was announced by some of them, including the Socialist Party, which is the party of this former prime minister. And the second one was rejected by the National Allies. So it means that these two choices were not numerically possible. These two personalities would have been very likely censored. And then President Macron came with a third name, who is Michel Barnier. And it seems that we have indications, at least, that Monsieur Barnier will be able to form a government. We have to see which composition will be made of this government, of course, but we'll be able to make a government, and we will see if it will be censored or not. But it means that the National Ally, from what we know from the public debate and the declarations, is ready to accept such a nomination and to not censor it as long as it goes into his direction. And I think that lastly, we have to insist on the profile of Prime Minister Barnier. He's a very experienced man, he's a very experienced politician. We have seen that he's been minister for 4 times, 2 times European commissioners. Most of the people outside of France know him as the chief negotiator for the Brexit. But more than anything else, I think that Monsieur Barnier has 2 qualities which are very important for today and the formation of a government. On one side, it's the fact that he's ready and able to do compromises. And it will be very necessary for the formation of his government. And the second one is that he's experienced when it comes to economics and is skilled in its relation with the European Union. And as I remind you, his main task will be to form a government which will be able to pass a budget, which is super important for France, as the European Union has sent some warnings to Paris on this issue.
All right, so it seems like the political turmoil in the country is actually a little bit more graver than we even thought. As well, we see Barnier perhaps only person being able to have the numeric reality to actually form a coalition, to form a governing body to pass the budget. But you also mentioned the need to compromise. I also already heard the National Rally says that, well, they'll have to be the judge of whether or not he'll go under a non-confidence vote, making them essentially the kingmaker. Do you think that the need for compromise with or far left or far right party will eventually skew the position when it comes to French politics?
We have to say again that French politics are unstable at the moment, and they remain as such. As I said, numerically speaking, the parliament is hung and there is no easy solution, right? But we have to find a solution. And in this case, what is very important for Mr. Barnier is whether he's threatened or not, he needs to have a functioning government. And for that, I think that he recalled it on TV over the past few days before the weekend. He has 2 objectives. The first one is to create a kind of union government. By that I mean that he will try to reach out both to the left, to the center left, and to the center right. Probably his government will be made of a lot of personalities from his own party, the Republicans, which is a minor party today in the National Assembly, but still a relevant player. And on the second, it's very likely that a few outgoing ministers will remain from the party of President Macron. And here we might see the maintaining of key figures such as Minister of Interior Darmanin or Minister of Defense Le Quiniou, who are very close to President Macron. And then he will need to reach out also to the center left. He said that he's open to this. Michel Barnier is a bit of a special conservative. He characterized himself as a social Gaullist, which means that he's a conservative on the societal issues and challenges, but he's also open to certain ideas from the left, I would say. And here he said that he was open to discuss the pension reform, even if he says also that it's very important for France's budget that we keep a rational approach to it. But still he say that he's open. He's also saying that he's open to what we called fiscal justice. So this is how he wants to open it. Now, what is very important for Mr. Barnier also, and he repeated it, is that he finds a way to be independent from the presidency, from the Élysée, from President Macron, who has proved over the past 7 years to be very implicated, very direct when it comes to its relations with the prime minister, its relations with the government. And it seems that there is understanding from both sides that it needs to be different this time, given the political situation, and that the president preside, but the government govern. And we will see if it's possible to do this. When it comes to the compromise to the national ally, I think that the politicians from this party have been clear. They will not censor Prime Minister Barnier as long as he's giving guarantees that some of the priorities of the national ally are respected. And here they mention generally 2 points which are major, which is about security and which are about purchasing power for people. And we have to add also, of course, immigration. And I think that there will be the key points. And we will see in a few weeks if after his speech to the National Assembly and the Senate, Mr. Barnier will be able to stay in post, or if we will have to do a new government.
All right. How do you think this new appointment is going to affect the French relation with within the European Union as well as the Central Eastern European region?
I think that the situation has not changed. The problem is that France is a politically unstable country today, and it will remain so in the next few months. The good thing that we might have is that France is able to form a government with Mr. Barnier, and is able to pass without too much difficulty a budget which will facilitate the relations with the European Union, with Brussels, and then one of the key difficult tasks of France will be released. But for sure, and we know that France historically is very turned into its own domestic politics, has some issues, structural issues to reach out to partners. It will be even worse. I'm convinced of this, because as of today, politics of France will be very much inflammable, will be very much polarized. There will be a lot of people that we focus only on domestic politics for one simple reason. First, the government can fall from one day to another. And the second is that a lot of people are convinced, from politicians to experts, that anticipated elections might come very early. As early as possible, actually, and it would be already next July. So I think France and Paris will be focused mainly on its relation with itself. We'll see mainly towards France, with a necessary outreach to Brussels, at least to fix the politics when it comes to the budget, when it comes to the public debt, the public spending and all these things, technical requirements. But it will be extremely difficult for the government as well as for the politicians to reach out to partners. But here, I believe that President Macron will try to maximize its influence over foreign affairs. And one of the signals will be probably the maintain of the Minister of Defense Le Quiniou on this portfolio, because that would be a sign that it would be a continuity of what France has done with Ukraine, particularly over the past few years, since 2022 or 23, because France was a bit late. So I think that it will be a key symbol to see who will stay at defense portfolio and who will be also in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because it's quite likely that we might have a change of minister in this ministry.
All right, and last but not least, you mentioned the political polarization within the country. Do you think that's something that we might see eventually be resolved in the near future, or is still a long way to go?
I think it's a long way to go. These three blocks are pretty much polarized as of today, and we see that it's very difficult today to find a government, to form a government, and the electorate of these three different pillars are quite stable. So this is why I'm thinking that it will be difficult in the coming months, but it will be difficult also in the coming years. I think that politicians from every group need to position themselves into more constructive politicians, constructive political players for France. The fact that we saw the left, especially the former mainstream parties, the traditional socialist party, refusing to join a government when the situation requires political players involved from the center-left to the center-right, I think it's a bad signal. It means that both on the left and on the right, and you can see it with the weakness of the traditional Socialist Party and the Republicans, that the more radical, the most extreme parties, both on the left and on the right, are driving the agenda of the leftist and rightist pillars. So I think it's a problem. We need to come back to a more stable, a more soft rhetoric. Today, France is facing many challenges, and it's very necessary that all the political players, and especially more important, the players who characterize themselves as government players, respectful players, democratic actors, needs really to find a way to cooperate together and to make sure that France is basically able to manage the challenges that it faces. It is important for France, it's important for French people, but it's also important for Europe.
Very much so. Thank you so much, sir, for your input and insight. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Cheers. And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.